Reading Lesson 110, Part 2, Chapter 20, Trembling on the Trail. Some questions I want you to keep in mind while we're reading today are: why did Tom think his adventure might be a dream? How did Tom prove the adventure wasn't a dream? And why did Joe's comrade think there wasn't anybody upstairs? Do you think hiding place number 2 is the hotel room? Explain your answer. And explain Tom's plan for getting into hotel number 2. Those are the questions to keep in mind for today's reading. Again, this is Chapter 20, Trembling on the Trail. The boys' breath left them. Outlaw Joe put his hand on his knife, halted a moment, undecided, and then turned toward the stairway. The boys thought of the closet, but their strength was gone. Joe's steps came creaking up the stairs. Suddenly, there was a crash of rotten timbers. Outlaw Joe fell through the rotten stair and landed on the ground amid the clutter of the ruined stairway. He got up, angry, and his comrade said, Now what's the use of all that? If it's anybody, they would have gone through. My apologies. Let's start over. He got up angry, and his comrade said, Now, what's the use of all that? If it's anybody, they would have gone through that stair the same way you did. It will be dark in 15 minutes, and then let anybody try to follow us if they want to. In my opinion, whoever brought those things in here caught a sight of us and took us for ghosts or devils or something. I'll bet they're running yet. Joe grumbled a while. Then he agreed with his friend that what daylight was left ought to be used in getting things ready for leaving. Shortly afterward, they slipped out of the house in the deepening twilight and moved toward the river with their precious box. Tom and Huck rose up, weak but vastly relieved, and stared after them through the cracks between the boards of the house. They were not interested in following the men. They were content to reach ground again without broken necks and head back to town. They did not talk much. They were much too busy with hating themselves, hating the bad luck that made them take the shovel and the pick there. If they hadn't done that, Outlaw Joe never would have suspected them. He would have hidden the silver with the gold to wait there till his revenge was satisfied, and then he would have had the bad luck to find the money missing. Tom and Huck remembered what the men had said about hiding place number 2. They resolved to keep a lookout for that deaf-mute man and follow him to number 2, wherever that might be. Then a ghastly thought occurred to Tom. Revenge? What if he wants to get us for revenge, Huck? Oh, don't say that, said Huck, nearly fainting. Tom and Huck talked it over, and as they entered town, they agreed to believe that Joe's revenge might possibly be intended for somebody else. The adventure of the day tormented Tom's dreams that night. 4 times in his dream, he had his hands on that rich treasure, and 4 times it slipped away. As he lay in the early morning, recalling his great adventure, he noticed that it seemed curiously far away, as if it had happened in another world or in a time long gone by. Then it occurred to Tom that the great adventure itself must be a dream. There was one very strong argument in favor of this idea, namely, that the amount of cash he had seen was too vast to be real. He had never seen as much as $50 in one mass before. Like all the boys his age, he imagined that all references to hundreds and thousands were just exaggerations and that such large sums did not really exist. But the events of Tom's adventure grew sharper and clearer as he thought them over. He soon found himself thinking that the thing might not have been a dream after all. This uncertainty must be swept away. He decided to eat a hurried breakfast and find Huck. Huck was sitting on a flat boat, dangling his feet in the water and looking very melancholy. Tom decided to let Huck bring up the subject. If he did not do it, that would prove the adventure had been only a dream. Hello, Huck. Hello, yourself. Silence for a minute. Tom, if we'd left the blame tools at the dead tree, we'd have got the money. Oh, ain't it awful? It ain't a dream, then. It ain't a dream. Somehow, I almost wish it was. Dogged if I don't, Huck. What ain't a dream? Oh, that thing yesterday. I've been half thinking it was. Dream? If them stairs hadn't broke down, you'd have seen how much of a dream it was. I've had dreams enough all night, with that Outlaw Joe devil going for me all through them. We've got to find him, track the money. Tom will never find him. We had one chance for the money, and now we've lost it. I'd feel mighty shaky if I was to see him. Well, so would I. But I'd like to see him anyway, and track him out to his number 2 hiding place. Number 2. Yes, that's it. I've been thinking about that. But I can't make nothing out of it. What do you reckon it is? I don't know, Tom replied. Say, Huck, maybe it's the number of a house. No, Tom, that ain't it. If it is, it ain't this one-horse town. There ain't no house numbers here. Well, that's so. Let me think a minute. Here, it's the number of a room in a hotel, you know? Oh, that's the trick. There are only 2 hotels. We can find out quick. You stay here, Huck, till I come. Tom was off at once. He was gone half an hour. He found out that in the best hotel, number 2, had long been occupied by a young lawyer and was still so occupied. In the less fancy hotel, number 2 was a mystery. The hotel keeper's young son said it was kept locked all the time, and he never saw anybody go in or come out of it except at night. He did not know any particular reasons for this state of things, but he thought the room might be haunted. He had noticed a light in there the night before. Tom reported everything he had found out. Then he added, I reckon that's the very number 2 we're after. I reckon it is, Tom. Now what are you going to do? Let me think. Tom thought a long time. Then he said, I'll tell you. There's a back door to that number 2 that comes out into the little alley between the hotel and the old brick store. Now you get a hold of all the door keys you can find, and I'll borrow all of Aunt Polly's, and the first dark night we'll go in there and try the keys. And mind you, keep a lookout for Outlaw Joe, because he said he was going to drop it into town and spy around once more for a chance to get his revenge. If you see him, you just follow him. If he don't go to that number 2, that ain't the place. I don't want to follow him by myself, Huck cried. Why, it'll be the night when you follow him. He might not ever see you, and if he did, maybe he'd never think anything. Huck said, well, it's pretty dark, I reckon. I'll track him. I don't know. I'll try. You bet I'll follow him if it's dark, Huck. Let's read that again. You bet I'll follow him if it's dark, Huck. Why, he might have found out he couldn't get his revenge and be going right after that money. All right, I'll follow him. Now you're talking. Don't you ever weaken, Huck. And I won't either. And that concludes today's reading. We've already gone over the logic. Here are our vocabulary review, part E. Repeat after me. Unearth. Eternity. Trifle. Pick. Blissful. Baying. Distinct. Again, unearth. Eternity. Trifle. Pick. Blissful. Baying. Distinct. You'll use these words to answer these questions. Question 1. Sorry, these aren't really questions. You're going to be plugging these in for the definitions. Number 1. When something seems to last forever, it lasts for an what? 2. When something is easy to recognize, it is blank. 3. When you dig something up, it. 4. Another word for joyful is what? Comprehension. These are the questions I wanted you to think about while reading is, why did Tom think his adventure might be a dream? How did Tom prove the adventure wasn't a dream? Why did Joe's comrade think there wasn't anybody upstairs? Do you think hiding place number 2 is the hotel room? Explain your answer. Explain Tom's plan for getting into hotel room number 2. Your writing prompt today. Do you think Huck and Tom should tell the sheriff about Outlaw Joe and the treasure? Write a conversation between Huck and Tom in which they discuss telling the sheriff about Outlaw Joe and the treasure. Think about the following questions. What happened the last time the boys decided to keep quiet about Outlaw Joe? What reasons do the boys have for telling the sheriff about Outlaw Joe and the treasure? What reasons do they have for keeping quiet? What will the boys decide to do? How will the boys keep their agreement? And make your conversation at least 80 words long. I'll be looking for this, 80 words long. And remember, a conversation kind of looks like this. This is Huck and Tom talking to each other. So, Huck cried, "I don't want to follow him by myself." See? Next piece. If somebody else is talking, it's a new paragraph. Why, it'll be the night you follow him. He might not ever see you. And if he did, maybe he'd never think anything. So that was Tom saying that. Because Huck just talked. Now Tom's talking. Now look, Huck said. What did Huck say? Well, if it's pretty dark, I reckon I'll track him. I don't know. I'll try. And then, this is Tom talking to Huck. You bet I'll follow him if it's dark, Huck. He's talking to Huck. Huck didn't say this. Why, he might have found out he couldn't get his revenge and be going right after that money. So there's Tom saying it. Didn't say it, but we can assume because he said somebody is talking to Huck, and it's their conversation. Next part. All right, I'll follow him. Well, if Tom just talked, this must be Huck talking. And Tom's response. Now you're talking. Don't you ever weaken, Huck. And I won't either. We know I is Tom, and he is talking to Huck. This is what your conversation should look like. Little baby paragraphs. All right, best of luck.